Hey there, James here. Hope you're having a great day and welcome to another one of my lessons. Now, if there's one musical setting which can really help a guitar player to shine, it's playing an awesome solo over a ballad. Think of Comfortably Numb by Pink Floyd's David Gilmour, Mama I'm Coming Home by Zakk Wylde, For the Love of God by Steve Vai, Always With Me, Always With You by Joe Satriani. There's hundreds of awesome solos on ballads which have become real classics. As guitar players, I think there's something about soloing over a slow melodic chord sequence which really helps us tap into the emotional and expressive side of our playing and try to really connect with the listener. But ballads can also be a challenge. There's a lot more space to fill. Things like wonky bends really show up. Lack of structure and space can show up and really mean that our solos miss the mark. Of course, you can't pack everything about ballad soloing into one short video like this, but I want to share with you 5 tips which I think you'll find really useful to help you play more powerful and effective solos in this setting. We're going to be playing in the key of C sharp minor here, and the backing track that I'm using in this lesson is available on my YouTube channel. You'll find a link to it underneath so you can check that out and practice along. One feature of almost all great ballad solos, string bends. Now we want to be using a lot of bends in our playing. This is really very obvious, I know, and you may be doing this already, but the thing is that bends give our solo a kind of a crying, lyrical, sort of vocal type sound, which works particularly well in this setting. Of course, our bends want to sound big and fat and juicy and be totally in tune, and a touch of vibrato can really help bring them out too. Try adding the vibrato towards the end of the bend, rather than at the start. In my opinion, playing a great solo over a ballad is 60 to 70% about how well you're using your bends. So grab a backing track to practice over and really experiment and practice using these bends in all sorts of different ways. You can use pre-bends where you bend up, then pick the note and let it down. You can practice bending up and re-picking the picked bend. And there's a whole host of other things you can do with bends, so grab a backing track and get busy experimenting. Leaving space between your phrases is another thing which will help to make your ballad soloing stand out. Leaving a gap between each phrase sort of frames each idea and stops them all just sticking together into a big lump of ideas. We can really hear each individual statement that makes up the solo. It's so easy not to leave space between phrases and everything just runs together into a big sea of licks and notes, but just one simple thing can make a huge difference to how good your soloing sounds. So grab a backing track and practice deliberately leaving a great big space in between each phrase. Play something, leave a big gap, play something else, leave a big gap, and you'll start to get used to playing this way and you'll really begin to hear a difference in your soloing. I'm going to demonstrate this exercise now for you over the backing track, so listen out for how I'm using space in between each phrase. We've already seen how bending gives our solo a sort of singing, lyrical sound, which can work really well for a ballad. But what about other notes which aren't bent? Well, there's all sorts of other ways we can play them to get this smooth vocal-like sound into our playing. Let's say we were just playing these 3 notes here. I'm going to go 9 on the G, 11 on the G, and back to 9. So, you know, it sounds fine if we pick it, but what about if we slid it? That sounds pretty cool, especially with the harmonic at the end. It gets this smoother sort of sound which just sits really nicely in a ballad. Of course, we could also hammer it on, pull it off. Or what if we hammered on and then slid back? You can just hear it has a different attack and a different sound. So experimenting with maybe trying to slide every note, that could be a good exercise. or trying to pick as fewer notes as possible. Can just help you to get this smoother sound into your playing. So just pay a bit of attention to that, because it's something which we maybe don't think about enough. I'm going to put on a track now and see if I can use lots of slides and hammers in my playing just to get that really smooth vocal sound that I'm talking about. Using repetition in your solo. So maybe you come up with a little theme and you play it a few times before you move on to the next idea. This helps to give your solo some kind of structure rather than each lick sounding a little bit disconnected. Now when I say repetition, you don't have to play exactly the same thing each time, but just see if you can trace some kind of link from phrase to phrase. I'm going to demonstrate this for you in real time now over the backing track, and I'm going to talk my way through it as I play so that you can kind of maybe get an idea of my thought process as I do this. So let's see how we do. So I'm going to start with my first lick here. And I'm going to repeat that. Play it again. I'm going to play it one more time. Now with a different ending. There's somewhere else now. Now try another idea. Let's stick on that bend for a while. So maybe you could hear that how there was kind of connection between some of the licks, and sometimes I went off on a little tangent and then came back to it, or I went off on that tangent and then explored that tangent. Maybe it was a higher bend and I started repeating that. But the point is, don't just move from one thing to the next. Think about really trying to maximize each little musical idea before you go on to the next one. Using the full range of the guitar can work really nicely in a ballad too. So often when we're kind of playing, we get stuck in a little pocket of notes, unlike the G and B string and high E string, and we kind of neglect the low strings. But I would invite you to experiment with using them, because you get this lovely low growling sound which can provide real contrast in any setting, but certainly in a ballad this is very much the case. Now, if you don't know your whole fretboard, then that's something you should investigate learning, and there's things on my channel to help you with that too. But to start with, I mean, even if you just know shape 1 and maybe the sliding shape down here, then just practice playing some ideas on those lower strings. So, I mean, anyone can do this. You don't need to know all the scale shapes ever on the fretboard. And just get used to using some of these lower strings in your playing too. Now, they're a little bit harder to bend and things, but, you know, maybe you're not going to play so many bending licks. Maybe it's going to be more chunky sounding sliding licks and this kind of stuff. And a bit of palm muting too can give them that sort of quite powerful muted chunky sound. So I'm going to stick on the backing now, and I'm going to practice trying to use a good mixture of high notes and low notes just to get some contrast into my solo. And this is the key word here, contrast. It stops our solos sounding sort of one-dimensional. Just makes them more interesting for the listener. So let's see how I can demonstrate that for you now. So there are 5 ideas to experiment with. Now I would suggest taking the backing track from this lesson and taking one of those ideas at a time and just mess around with it for 5 or 10 minutes and then choose a different one. And you'll begin to find that when you come and you're just jamming over something like this without thinking about using repetition or without thinking about using low notes or whatever, some of what you've learned from practicing in this way will stick and it will just start to influence and shape your playing. And this is how we improve. So I hope you found this lesson useful. Remember that if you like my lessons and my way of teaching, visit my website for a lot more, plus some free extra goodies there, and subscribe to my YouTube channel so that you can check out all my other future videos. If you found this lesson really helpful and you want to leave me a comment below letting me know how you got on with these concepts, then I'd love to hear from you. But anyway, look out for more lessons coming soon. Thanks for watching and I'll catch you next time.